Fox News primetime host Tucker Carlson, welcome to Credlin and Sky News Australia.
Well, thanks for having me.
Hey, I just mentioned now, many of the cultural issues that are front and centre of the US are here as well. We're lagging perhaps a couple of years behind you in terms of the intensity of some of the debate, but there's no doubt if we look across the Pacific, we can see where this is headed. All the things the West once knew that were settled, went through that list, they're all upended now. Now, we're at war with ourselves, I would contend, Tucker. It's that simple. So,
And Sweden and the Nordics and the Netherlands, you're seeing the same culture wars everywhere. Just wanted to add that.
I want your take. How do we get here, and what's the battle plan for good people to fight back?
It's really simple. I mean, we've had debates in our societies which are not so different.
Can I just ask, what is good people? But all right, these are conservatives. She's a conservative and Tucker Carlson is like a liberal conservative. It's
simple. I mean, we've had debates in our societies which are not so different and have the same common root in the UK, very similar systems. And we've had debates about how we ought to govern ourselves and how we ought to live since our countries were founded.
And these debates have been in Sufi Islam since the dawn of Sufi Islam, debating with scholars on what is tasawwuf and sharia and so on. So, yeah.
What's changed is the intolerance for other people's opinions. So the agreement was always, we may disagree with one another, but we each have a right to say our piece, to explain what we think, and to have our own opinions.
John Stuart Mill in a nutshell. This is totally like On Liberty, John Stuart Mill, 1859. I just read the book today. So this is freedom of speech, what Tucker Carlson is saying. This is it. You need to be able to have a crazy opinion. Basically, two very opposing opinions and finding sort of the best intellectual solution that intelligence, genius requires freedom of thought and freedom to be able to speak your thought. So he is right here. Tucker Carlson is right. This is consistent with modern liberalism, John Stuart Mill.
And within the last several years in the United States, a school of thought has become predominant among people in power, which is to say government officials and the media and business leaders as well, that only one side is allowed to speak in public and the other side had better be quiet or else they will be punished. So free speech is the foundation of a free society. That's why in our country, in our founding documents, it's the first freedom guaranteed by the government. Freedom of speech.
Yeah, it is. And it is the same in the entire Western world. And you have these, I would even call them social democrats that think that their opinion is the truth and anyone who disagrees with them is evil. So you have this kind of polarization where one side, the woke left or social democratic woke left, not real socialism, by the way, they think that their opinions are the truth. Nobody is allowed to question it. Nobody is allowed to think freely, rationally, freely, philosophically, meditatively examine truth, discuss it and speak it. Then you get cancelled. Like so many people have gotten cancelled. Donald Trump got cancelled. Alex Jones got cancelled. Farrakhan got cancelled. Phil Valentine got cancelled. Andrew Tate got cancelled. I've been banned many times on TikTok because I speak against the main narrative. So this is very true what Tucker Carlson is saying.
Speech.
How do we fight back? And what's the take on social media, particularly out of the US? I mean, how much is this a root cause of these issues we're facing?
Well, I mean, the key misperception that people have about social media is that they reflect the public sentiments. And of course, they are completely controlled by three companies. And the software that runs them, the so-called algorithms, determine what you see. And so it's very easy to manipulate public opinion if public opinion is direct.
The so-called echo chambers, you end up in an echo chamber of similar content, and then you don't see anything other than that content that the algorithm says. It's a form of tyranny. And to have our attention being on social media nowadays, and then some Mark Zuckerberg, who the fuck knows who, controlling those algorithms and deciding what you can say and what you cannot say, this is a very big threat to Western liberalism.
From Facebook, Google, and Twitter, which in this country it is. newspapers, and I hate to say television networks also are declining in influence, and social media really determine what people see and therefore what they think. And those platforms are controlled by three companies. So you have centralized control over people's opinions. And if people are suddenly hating each other, well, that suggests the people turning the dials at those companies want people to hate each other. And then you have to ask, well, why would that be?
Well, we saw all the stuff play out with Hunter Biden. We saw that there's silence outside of Fox News in the media in the US. Is Biden really going to go around again at the next election?
Well, I mean, it's worked pretty well for the Democratic Party. I mean, Joe Biden is senile, and the downside is he's not capable of organizing your daughter's birthday party, much less running a government. But the upside is he seems very non-threatening.
Calling Biden senile is too harsh, but in a liberal democracy, you can criticize the president. Because if you cannot criticize the president, then you have to agree with the president. And when you have to agree with the president, you have dictatorship. Because that is exactly how dictatorships are. I've been to Africa. When Yahya Jammeh was the president of Gambia, you could not say a single word against him. Not a single word. I started being a little bit critical on President Jammeh. Everyone silenced me. So if you cannot criticize a leader, you have a dictatorship, period.
Voters are not afraid of Joe Biden. And of course, he's merely a proxy for the people who are actually running the U.S. government. The faceless, diabolical figures who are driving us into the abyss. So,
I don't want to hear that again. What's the word he used? Jordan Peterson called them the compassionate narcissists. Russia calls them the neoliberals or the globalists. What term does Tucker Carlson use?
Afraid of Joe Biden? And of course, he's merely a proxy for the people who are actually running the U.S. government. The faceless, diabolical figures who are driving us into the abyss.
The faceless, diabolical figures who are driving us to the abyss. That's Tucker Carlson's not very subtle code word for the deep state.
So they've benefited greatly from having a senile president. And the more I think about it, the more I imagine, why wouldn't they?
I mean, you see this in Europe also. Look at Sanna Marin in Finland. She's like 36 years old, partying. She's stupid. Why did they put Sanna Marin in Finland? So that they can push NATO agenda. Why did they coup Stefan Löfven, who was the prime minister in Sweden, who was actually competent social democrat, put Magdalena Andersson there, which is a narcissist, so that they can push their agenda because they are agreeable to those men behind the scenes. So I agree with there being a clear agenda to promote incompetent people who are agreeable. I agree with Tucker Carlson.
Again, they're not going to run Kamala Harris. Nobody likes Kamala Harris. I don't think Mr. Harris likes Kamala Harris.
He's allowed to criticize
so why not
politicians.
Hey, just before we go, give us some hope in the West. You know, you watch conservative programs like mine and like yours, and it's hard not to feel like we're just managing our inevitable decline.
Well, at least the conservatives see the truth that the West is falling, which is what some of us have been saying for a long time. Well, I think that there is a lot of hope, and I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as maybe the most cataclysmic things, although I think a third world war is inevitable. But I do think that it is good to be able to look the truth so much in the eyes to say, look, we had our time, the West is declining, is there any hope? I think that's a good question.
Give us some hope, Tucker Carlson.
Well, here's the hope. I notice this all the time. The people who are following this, and they come from all backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, political backgrounds, people who thought one thing 5 years ago think a very different thing today.
Me.
It has caused people to really think about what kind of country they want, what kind of government
what kind of Western
they have,
world we want.
and also to think more deeply about their own lives and where they go after their lives end. I mean, there is an intellectual and spiritual awakening, a reawakening going on in this country. I hope it's happening in yours, where under all of this pressure, some people are becoming much more impressive and alive and curious and I would say more noble and brave. So there's a huge upside. I have more interesting conversations with more impressive people now than in my entire life in 27 years of doing television in the last 2 years. So I take great comfort in that.
Can someone tell me, I have been an Obama supporter, I've been sort of liberal, maybe liberal left, social liberal, libertarian left, that kind of spectrum, my entire life. But now it's only Tucker Carlson I can listen to. I cannot listen to CNN. They just lie in my face. I cannot listen to BBC. They are fake as fuck. I can only listen to those who identify as conservative content creators or hosts or radio shows in America, like Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and the like. Why is that? Why is it only the conservatives who tell the truth now? I don't even identify as a conservative. I think some of their beliefs are racist. But at least they are telling the truth and for freedom. And they say things the way they are. Why is it like that? It's very strange, very interesting sort of shift in the world.